Welcome to the Side Quest, where interesting tales of founders, funders, and everyone in between are told.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Side Quest. It is the week of January, 20th-ish, 18, somewhere in there. And we're excited to have you all. For those of you who don't know, my name is Joe Colby. I am the Gretby Godfather. And with me today, as always, is Sonali of Primordial. Sonali, how's it going?
Going great. I'm a little jet lagged because I was actually in Seattle this past weekend, but broadly doing good. Chugged some coffee.
Well, I want to hear all about Seattle. But before we do that, I want to set up the show a little bit. We have some wonderful guests today. We have Andy and Cayley from The Complete Breakfast, which you might remember from May Trade that we used to have on the Friday Nooner many moons ago. So in a few minutes, we're going to bring them on board. But before that, we absolutely, Sonali, we have to hear about your weekend. You were in Martin Luther King weekend in Seattle. Why? What happened? Please do tell. I'll be sipping my coffee while you share.
It's a very entertaining story, actually. I was there to visit some friends. It's my first time in Seattle. Did not realize that sunshine in January was such a novel occurrence in Seattle. And we got told by 30 different people that we visited at the most perfect time. My friend opened the window and saw the sunshine, and it was like the most monumental thing that she'd ever seen. Whereas, I mean, Durham, we're spoiled, I guess. I mean, sun's always
we
out.
are spoiled, actually. I think this part of North Carolina has a lot of sunny days.
Yeah,
and where I grew up in the great city of Akron, Ohio, which everyone knows, is much more gray, lake effect gray. So one of the reasons why my wife and I moved here is because it was sunnier, blue skies. Carolina blue skies. If you appreciate that as a dookie. So outside of like Colorado, which has a lot of sunny days, this is a wonderful place to live.
Yeah, sunshine's good for morale. I don't think I properly realized that until Seattle this past weekend. It was lovely.
So yesterday, this is not a sunny day thing, but one of the things I did last night in celebration of MLK is the Carolina Theater in downtown Durham. They have their 100th anniversary, and in celebrations for MLK, there was a local film put together called Breaking the Booth, which basically talked about the desegregation of Carolina Theater, which was actually one of the last public places to be desegregated in Durham, which is crazy.
Wow.
And it was in the 60s, and they even had people that were the youth that were kind of part of the whole process. And it was really, really neat as a way of kind of remembering civil rights, all the great things done by MLK. And it is scarily relevant today as everything that's going on. But we don't need to get political. But that was one of the things that I did over the weekend. And also my wife, who's more activisty than me, apparently on your sidewalk, you're supposed to write some LK quote or symbol. Oh. And I noticed when I drove out today, because it's freaking freezing in Durham, when I drove to work, someone probably in my family had done, it's either a peace sign at the bottom of my driveway or a Mercedes symbol. It's really unclear whether it's Mercedes or peace. I need to go back and look at it. So,
the intention is there. The thought is there.
The intention is there. And maybe people really like Mercedes. That's fine. Yeah. I don't have a Mercedes, but maybe they're trying to give me a big hint.
Yeah. It's so nice to celebrate MLK weekend in a place like Durham. I mean, we're the heart of Black Wall Street. It's such a nice place to really contextualize what that impact was.
Paris Street, where a building is actually, that's what Black Wall Street was.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Very interesting. So Seattle, tell me really quick about some highlights from Seattle other than that it was sunny, which sounds amazing. And then we'll move on.
Took the ferry to Bainbridge Island, which was incredible. It's this cute little island with bookstores, and there was a museum of art, which was really nice. On the way back, we could see the Seattle skyline. It was really beautiful. And then did all the touristy things, like went to Pike Place, saw the Space Needle. we tried to pack everything into this weekend as possible, and it was wonderful. A wonderful first trip to Seattle, hopefully not the last.
Cool. Well, welcome back. Those are all the kind of things you do when you visit, when you live there, and your friends that live there, they probably only do it when friends visit.
Yeah, it was their first time doing a lot of the touristy things, actually.
That's how it goes. Cool. All right. So one of the things we decided to add as a segment in the show was hot take. So you've picked out some interesting news item. I want to give my hot take, and you're going to share yours, and then we're going to move on to our wonderful guests.
Yeah. So AI cloud startup RunPod hit 120 million in ARR, and it all started with a Reddit post that brought in a key angel investor from Dell Technologies Capital, which is another unique way of getting investor interest. Is social media the official new status quo to raise capital? And should startups be optimizing for it? Hot take.
Okay. All right. That's worky. That's businessy. So I will say a couple of things. One, I saw that headline
Okay.
somewhere, and I was like, I'm going to go read TMZ instead with celebrity news. So I didn't get the whole Reddit part of it. I just saw like the headline. I would say no. I think there are some high profile startups that do that. I actually prefer, and this is me, this is old man me, prefer founders who don't doubt a lot on social media and really are focused on their startup. And many could argue how it does help. And if they're doing social media where it really helps their startup, that's fine. But I think a lot of folks are just, they want to be closet journalists in reality. And it's just kind of a distraction. So I think that's great for those people. And that's wonderful. I think there's some exceptions. But in general, I would like founders to spend less time on social media, less time on significant side hustles and jobs, and really focus heads down on what they're doing. When I was building my company, Bronto, and obviously social media wasn't as fleshed out, I would definitely do it to promote the business. And I definitely did it not so much for customers, but I did it when we were growing and we needed people, and I needed to help keep our name, our brand out there. So we would do a lot of social media around our fun activities. Yeah. We had this whole subsector called Bronto Nation, which was just based on culture. And that was really, really important to us. But I didn't just do social media, Yeah, but whatever. We also didn't raise money. So maybe. Do you have a different hot take?
I sort of do. I think that in an interesting way, accessing venture capital has been such a closed door function for so long that it almost feels like social media is democratizing how startups can get their name out there and access investors and find a more unconventional path to raising capital. So I totally agree. I think social media has to be relevant and intentional and not overly flashy, but I do think it can open up a lot of doors within the capital space.
We don't have time to get into this little side quest or hot take, but the bigger question is, has venture capital and doing startups become more democratized? Or at the end of the day, is it the same ex-Goldman, ex-Stanford, ex-McKinsey type people, and they just have to be doing social media compared to before?
And it's just an illusion, maybe.
Future,
for sure.
Future conversations. Now
let's do that.
We're going to put a proverbial pin in that, because we have something way more exciting, and that is our guests for this week, Andy and Cayley. It's a twofer from The Complete Breakfast, which is a new e-commerce agency. And for those of you who are fans of Grumpy and of the Friday Nooner might remember that we had them on the show before, when they were in the thick of it doing their own online retailer. So without further ado, I would love to bring them on board.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice.
Yo. Good to see y'all. Good to be back.
Ooh, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We're so excited.
We are so excited. You all have a lovely background.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was not always lovely. This is our home studio and photo studio. It was a 1988 garage that was pretty gross, to say the least, when we got our hands on it. So now this is where we do a lot of our e-commerce photography. It's where we sit every single day working on our clients, and we like it. It it was a labor of love. I don't look forward to doing any sort of contractor related work ever again.
I'm going
I'm
to let
retired.
Sonali ask a serious question in a second, but before that, and I feel so mixed about that comment because we're just about to renovate downstairs of our building, and I'm just about to embark in a renovation of my home kitchen, which I've done before in a different house, and it's absolutely horrible. So thank you for giving me PTSD about both those experiences. But we are a podcast as well as a YouTube channel. So for the benefit of our podcast listeners, because your background looks lovely, and I know you guys are coming from the center of all things great, wonderful, Carborough, next to Chapel Hill, which I think was once referred to as the Paris of the Piedmont. Is there something like that? Is that right?
That's right. That's
right.
So just to describe a little bit, you guys have a very cool sliding door behind you. I don't know how to describe that. Not a pocket door, but one that hangs
Barn door?
outside.
I think
Barn
so.
door. There we go.
Yeah.
And then you guys have wonderfully painted a dark blue, would I dare say, not royal blue, cabinets as well. It looks lovely.
If I remember correctly, I think the color is indigo batik. Yes, it's a
Okay.
Sherwin-Williams color. We do not have a promotional code that you can click for that one. But yeah, we actually bought these cabinets on Facebook Marketplace.
Yep, somebody
Wow.
renovating their kitchen in Cary. And so we got the whole kitchen, including the countertops, and outfit this space in our laundry room, which you can't
Of
see.
course, it's from Cary. Not the sidetrack on that, but that's a whole other conversation. All right, Sonali, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, well, welcome, Andy and Cayley. It's so nice to meet both of you. This is my first time meeting both of you, but would love if you could tell us a little bit more about Complete Breakfast.
Yeah. So Complete Breakfast is a boutique e-commerce agency. So boutique because we're small, we're very hands-on. We specialize in working with small to medium-sized businesses who are looking to grow. Maybe they're an established e-commerce business, or they see e-commerce as an opportunity for their business, an arm that they haven't really explored. And, we're former operators. We started an online marketplace, ran it for 7 years, Made Trade, so that we were on the Friday Nooner talking about Made Trade several years ago. And, through that experience, we kind of had this, I guess you could call it, unconscious side quest that was forming, and we didn't even realize it.
Bonus points.
And really that was because we were hiring third-party services agencies over the course of those 7 years where we were running the business, primarily bootstrapped the majority of the time. So we had to be incredibly scrappy,
Yep.
really resourceful with limited funds. And Andy's background is in digital production and advertising. So that played a huge role. But over the course of those 7 years, we were really taking a lot of these areas of the business in-house and really seeing the need to take a holistic approach, because so often we would hire an agency to work on a piece of the business, but they didn't understand the whole picture. They didn't understand strategically how that, let's say email marketing fit into the broader strategy for who our customer is and other objectives that we had for the business. And so that's
So I
where
have
we
a
found this.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So what, and you can use one of your clients as an example or just a fictitious one.
Yeah.
I was in the e-commerce space for a long time because my software company, Bronto, we had an online marketing platform. What size retail, like what would be a profile customer for you? And very specifically, what kind of things, how could you augment what they do? Right? What are the kind of services that you could do or could provide?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A profile customer for us is really, if you're selling anything online, you could use our services. For us, like Cayley mentioned, like we're looking at mainly at small and medium-sized businesses, whether they're an e-commerce startup or they're, predominantly maybe they have a wholesale account or multiple wholesale accounts, and that's the majority of their business is wholesale. And e-commerce is a piece of their business, but it may not be, it hasn't been fully optimized and fully realized. I think that sort of gets to like where
we saw a lot of that at Bronto, actually, direct to consumer, with folks who were mainly doing it through separate channels, but then they had like this direct online business that they were trying to ramp up.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a target customer for us. And it's kind of going back to this, like what we saw is like, when we were building this, when we were building our own marketplace, is this really siloed approach that we continued to see from third-party services. And I think that's where we're very different, is like, as former operators and founders, we're taking that holistic approach and looking at everything all together. We see so many beautiful websites that have been beautifully designed. They have a really nice color palette, but are they beautiful and usable? And a lot of times the answer is no. You don't have someone with a usability lens looking at a website and actively thinking about the customer journey and all the friction points. And that's just one of the services that we offer, is like this optimization of a website, right? We also do what we call the e-commerce audit. We do a full system audit of every piece of an e-commerce business. So this might be email and SMS, it might be a website. It also could be back of house. It could be shipping and logistics and tech stack and API integrations and apps. How do all these things come together to really create an e-commerce ecosystem that is strong, healthy, and very profitable for a client?
It's form and function. It can't be one or the other.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. And I think
they go hand in hand.
a lot of folks will hire an e-commerce agency that does beautiful work and undeniably beautiful work, beautifully designed work. But a lot of times the design that you see on a website is not meant for a website. It's meant for, packaging, or it's meant for a physical brochure or, a takeaway. It's not like created for the digital space first. And then when that happens, you have a beautiful website that may not convert as many people, or people might get stuck, or it may not be very apparent or obvious what an action is. And I think that's one of our superpowers, is coming in and really looking with a critical lens. How can we improve this? How can we increase revenue through small changes that, might have been invisible to someone who's just coming with a design lens?
Definitely.
So the year's 2026, right? Technology and the nature of technology is always changing the landscape. Before this, you all were doing Made Trade. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what that was. But really where I'm getting at, when you started Made Trade, or when you started 5-10 years ago, how has the e-commerce market, if we want to call it that, changed? And how has the toolkit maybe changed now than when you kind of started whatever journey more specifically into this world?
Yeah. It's definitely night and day. We started in 2018.
Okay.
And we luckily were very focused on organic from the start. So that was a huge advantage for us. We invested in SEO from day one, and affiliate marketing. And that really those were the two big levers for growth for us. It wasn't prospecting ads, paid ads on Meta, or what was then just, Facebook and Instagram, and Google. And we eventually started to invest in those channels, but being bootstrapped, right, we had to be really efficient with limited capital. And affiliate marketing completely changed about, I would say, 5 years in, where, these big algorithm updates that were really affecting content creators and blogs started to completely change, what was showing up in those first positions, where we were getting a ton of traffic through our affiliate network. That started to really become a much smaller percentage of our revenue. We had to pivot, really get strategic with how do we grow organic? How do we, make it so that we're not dependent on these pay-per-click ads? And so often, you hear these stories of e-commerce businesses where they scale with, let's say, Facebook ads, and then all of a sudden those ads aren't performing and they don't have, that channel anymore that's really driving customer acquisition.
I've heard that that's a little bit of the case. And again, I'm not as close to it anymore with Google ads and the rise of ChatGPT and other ways of people getting information, which is very different than, certainly even 5 years ago, like 10 years ago, certainly.
Yeah. You're fighting for even visibility on page 1 of Google, and now so much of what we're talking about is the answer engine optimization, the AEO of it, like being the answer and not just having like, oh, well, I'm going to depend on someone to like see a blue link and click on it. Like so much of what we're, getting now is being summarized for us. And if we need to like dig deeper into something, it's typically when there's quality content that we want to engage with. And I think that's one of the things that was very interesting. And Joe, this kind of goes back to what you were, asking a moment ago, like what's changed. Even in the past, like 2 years, we've seen this big shift of all of these AI focused, build out an article in seconds, post it on your website in minutes. And it's all about a, flood the zone approach of having so much content out there, something's going to get picked up. And we are always saying, hold on, wait a second, creating quality content that answers the question for the customer and that a customer would actually want to read and engage with. That is so much more valuable than the quantity approach, right? We're taking a quality approach of creating actual content that's helpful for a person that they want to engage with. And this really kind of like goes back to like the early days of blogging of like, having your own individual blog that has its own very unique, viewpoint and, pictures that you're taking yourself. Like we're sort of shifting back to that way. And this is something that we're encouraging our clients to think about as well, is like, it's not a, quantity approach. It's about having really helpful, meaningful content people want to engage with.
So I want to ask, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, as founders yourselves and having to be really capital efficient and scrappy, and, a lot of the founders that we work with at Primordial are doing the exact same. It almost feels like now, even though there's a lot of AI tools on the market that are lower cost, theoretically, it should be lowering the barrier to entry to create these, like effortless marketing ecosystems. But do you think that it's actually created almost more gaps in a startup's understanding of what they need to do for marketing because it's so piecemeal?
Yeah, I think there's more traps maybe in terms of feeling like everybody wants a silver bullet, right? When you're just starting out, you're like, what's the thing that's going to really drive, really fast growth to get to the next milestone? And, they rarely exist. It's really about strategy, about being intentional. I think AI tools are really helpful for brainstorming, first drafts, getting to the finish line faster, but you always need to be really critical about whatever that output is. At least in our experience, it's like, it's very rare that AI is going to generate that final output. It's going to get you pretty far, but then how do you, iterate on it?
AI couldn't do this.
Right? Yeah.
This podcast, the magic here, imagine AI, this is handcrafted slowly over years, seconds, and minutes.
Yeah. I'll add to that. I think that just with like the content creation angle, we use AI in our business, but we're using it like how Cayley is talking about. Like I will sit down and I will ramble the ChatGPT for 5 minutes. We're building a case study for one of our clients, right? We want to share the good news of everything that we have done for them with the rest of the world. So I'll sit down, I'll ramble for 5 minutes, talk about all the key points, all the things that we did, help me build an outline. I'm still writing that content at the end of the day because I think we can all, at least at this point in January 2026, we know when we're reading AI content for the most part. It's usually lacking substance or it's repeating itself. It's using an M dash. It just feels a little weird and icky.
Can I just say, I am so sad about the fact that M dashes have just been ruined now. I was such an avid M dash user pre-ChatGPT, and now I feel like I can't because people are going to think that I used AI to write
you need to
what I'm
step
writing.
up. brings M dashes. And I just learned there's some, the regular dash, I think, is called the N dash, EN dash. Google it. Look it up, ChatGPT it. Find your way.
Right after this podcast.
There we go. So in the spirit of keeping this all kind of cool, nice, and crisp, Sonali, why don't you kind of wrap us up with one kind of final question, and then I will have my own too.
For sure. Andy and Cayley, you both have really diverse backgrounds across marketing and startups. Cayley, you've worked within global studies and linguistics. Andy, you've worked across all aspects of the marketing ecosystem. What would you tell founders today as they're starting a business, and how much of that advice is shaped by your backgrounds?
Gosh, want me to go first?
Yeah.
What would I tell them? I would tell them, first off, build a solid website. Build a website that uses the conventions that we know and understand and that people know and understand. Make sure that you have a schema in place, schema.org. Check it out. It's actually pretty important. And then start writing content and telling people about what you're doing. And it is so unsexy. It is not it's not like the thing that like gets me up in the morning and I'm excited about SEO, but SEO and AEO are so important to a business, and you want to be found. You want to be the answer for things. So if you're creating an app, I want to know all about that app. You should have like FAQs all over your FAQ page, answering all the questions that people are going to be asking so that you become the answer and people get directed to your website. I think about things from a very like technical standpoint of if you are starting out and you have no traction and you have nothing to, to go from, start with your website. Make sure that that's the answer for everything that you're doing and keep it up to date. Often we forget about it. We don't want to keep it up to date. It's not the fun thing to do, but it's very important. And it's one thing that I would give, that advice I would give is a very solid foundation for any founder starting out.
Yeah. Totally different thought process, but I would say, sometimes there's 5-10 ways to get something done. And I think remembering to take a step back and think about what are you actually trying to achieve. Sometimes it's very tempting to iterate on a product over and over and over when an MVP is really all you need to get to and get it out the door and get people using it and get that feedback so that you can iterate from there.
Absolutely.
Perfection can be the enemy of just getting it done. So just keeping that in the back of your mind, no matter what it is, I think is really helpful for startups.
That's incredible. Just keep it simple. For sure.
Yep.
So I have two final things. One of them is leave a parting thought to all our kind of listeners, watchers, and readers of GripBeat, what you want them to know about the Complete Breakfast or Complete Breakfast. And then two, Sonali, as our resident Gen Zer on this podcast, any advice of where else she should visit beyond Seattle, or that would be wonderful for her to broaden her horizons?
Yeah. So I would say, in terms of our approach, this is really applicable to any e-commerce business. But thinking about the e-commerce ecosystem, how everything works together, you're not going to succeed with just SEO. You need that SEO to be strategic and intentional and be tied to your other business objectives. Who's your customer? What are they looking for, right? Again, going back to useful content, but everything works together, and it's going to be a series of small changes and iterations and everything collectively that drive that impact and drive growth. It's not going to be just that one thing.
There's no silver bullet. We're not even a silver bullet. We know how to deploy across the entire e-commerce ecosystem and to improve it, but it's a lot of small things that make up a big thing. And, one thing that, we're sitting in a photo studio right now that doubles as an office. When we're taking e-commerce photography, we're thinking about how does this help the customer? How does this help get a user to a browser to a buyer? And I think that that's one of the things that we are very uniquely positioned to do, because we've had to do that all of our, we've had to do that ourselves before. This isn't just, we didn't just read a book and, come up with these strategies that, we're helping, businesses of all types to succeed. We've lived them. And that's a very different approach than a lot of the agencies, the e-commerce agencies that you'll see out there. Very few have created a 7-figure annual business from scratch. And I think that that's something that, we're proud of. And I think we're really excited to share that experience with so many other people and businesses that need it.
Very
And
good.
Sonali, you should go to Portland too.
Yeah, go to Portland. Yeah, 100% Portland. We lived there for 5 years. That's, where we started our first business and marketplace. The community is thriving. We love it. We'll give 1 million plugs for it. The weather this time of year, might be a little sunny, might be a little rainy. You don't know. It's a you don't know situation. The summers are incredible. The food scene is amazing. The people are great. And I think something that Cayley says all the time is like the folks that are there, that are the small businesses that are involved in their community. They are walking the walk. They are really, they're there creating incredible products and being they're,
It's a very creative city, very entrepreneurial.
Chicago of the West.
Yeah.
The
There you go.
Honestly, very Durham and Triangle like when I visited Seattle, just like so eclectic and fun. Everyone's super nice. So I will definitely ask you guys for hiking recommendations and food recommendations if I get a chance to go to Portland.
Absolutely.
We're here for it.
Folks, Ann and Cayley, it was wonderful to have you guys on again. We look forward to see more and more progress with your new e-commerce agency. And thanks again for being on the Side Quest.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Sonali.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, bye.
Bye.